Premier Malinauskas, welcome to the programme, and our sympathy first off for the flood crisis being suffered in your state.
Well, thanks, Sarah. And look, there is a challenge we've got on our hands in South Australia at the moment. We've got a lot of water coming our way, but our riverland communities and our Mid-Murray community are as well prepared as we could possibly hope, and this is an active situation that we monitor very closely. Now,
we've got National Cabinet postponed to Friday, but what are you hoping to see emerge on energy prices?
Well, clearly the national energy market faces an unprecedented crisis that has very real implications for consumers on the eastern seaboard and in South Australia. We want to see any plans that will amount to a reduction in that price pressure. This is a complex area of policy. The national energy market is in a very, very difficult situation, and we're open-minded to any solutions, but we think they need to be carefully calibrated and thoroughly examined before they'll be wholeheartedly supported.
Now, there are gas companies claiming that a price cap around the figure of $11 to $13 a gigajoule would be a disincentive to investment. Is that a credible claim in your view?
Well, I think it's one that's worthy of consideration. The idea of a gas price cap or a coal price cap, we haven't actually been in receipt of formally from the Commonwealth at this stage. But if there was going to be the introduction of such a policy, again, its calibration will be very, very important indeed, because there's a balance here between protecting the interests of consumers, but at the same time making sure that we don't send unnecessary signals around investment into the future. We're open-minded to the possibility. Our officials have examined it closely, particularly in a South Australian context, but the detail here will be important.
But do you think then that that figure is too high? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not going to make a commentary on the figure, and we're certainly not aware of any specific figure from the Commonwealth at this stage. In fact, we're not aware of the proposal in a formal sense at all. There's only been plenty of speculation in the media. I simply say that all options should be considered on a net basis of evidence and thoughtful policy focus on the short-term problem that we've got, but at the same time, we don't want to create a long-term problem in the process.
At the same time, you've raised the idea of nuclear power. Now, you know that South Australia can't build nuclear power reactors without the permission of the federal government. You know the federal Labor government is implacably opposed. Why would you raise it?
No, look, I don't, Sarah. I think you're referring to comments that were in the Adelaide Advertiser yesterday, and I was actually arguing quite strongly that when we talk about nuclear power, it shouldn't be captured by the culture wars. And I think what we're starting to see evidence of around the nuclear power debate in Australia at the moment is, yet again, the culture wars are being infused in an energy policy discussion, which I think is wholeheartedly unhelpful. My view about nuclear power, I've been on the record for over a decade now, and that is it's a source of zero carbon emission power that can produce a lot of baseload power into the market, but it is completely uneconomic in both the South Australian but also the Australian context. The price contribution to the marketplace from nuclear power would actually be far more expensive than most other generation potential we have in the country at the moment. And for that reason, I don't know why I would be actively investing a huge amount of effort in that realm of policy. And that was the broader context of my remarks.
Nonetheless, you've just said that it's been captured by a culture war. Are you saying that the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, has been captured by a culture war?
No, not at all. I think the Prime Minister's remarks are largely consistent with my view, and that is, when we talk about nuclear power, we should assess how would it operate in the Australian context. And the simple fact is this: it would make energy a lot more expensive indeed. Let me just give you a bit of context, Sarah. The big nuclear power station that's been talked about globally at the moment is Sizewell C in the United Kingdom. That's a 3,200 megawatt facility that is going to cost £20 billion. That's 36 billion Aussie. Now, I don't think anybody who has any familiarity with our generation potential in Australia would think that such an investment stacks up economically. And for that reason, I think we should acknowledge that nuclear power would make energy more expensive in our nation, and put it to one side, rather than having a culture war debate around nuclear power in the same way we've seen a culture war debate around gas and also renewables. Let's just focus on the evidence and what works to address the challenge we've got coming our way.
And yet it was clear that both the Prime Minister and Tanya Plibersek saw you as putting it into the debate rather than pushing it out of the debate. Why engage in it if it's something that should be should be rejected entirely?
Well, I didn't seek to suggest that nuclear power should be part of the mix in our nation. I was simply saying we've got people who are advocating that position without any reference to what the implications would be of the price on energy in our nation at the moment. And that strikes me as being rather foolhardy. And that was certainly the context of my... In fact, that's exactly what I was saying in my remarks to the advertiser that have been reported more broadly.
Now, of course, we will be having a debate around nuclear power, at least in relation to the submarines that may well be being built in your state. So where does the nuclear debate belong in relation to submarines and their possible existence or being in port in South Australia?
Well, the nuclear submarines that will be built, according to the Commonwealth's policy, in Port Adelaide, not too far from where I sit now, I think will be a demonstration of how we can have the semblance of a nuclear industry in Australia done in a very safe and considered way. It's a discrete effort, but it is an important one for our national sovereignty. It's an important one to improve our economic complexity as a country, which is very important indeed. And I think it will demonstrate that we can do this safely. And I think an increasing number of South Australians and Australians more broadly will see that exercise as being a good thing.
And just to be clear, have you had this conversation with Anthony Albanese since he pushed back pretty hard on the idea being raised?
Absolutely. I spoke to the Prime Minister yesterday evening when he rang me and let me know that he had COVID. We were together on the weekend in the Riverland in South Australia, and he and I are in furious agreement about this in respect to the fact that the cost of nuclear energy removes it from the options when it comes to addressing the immediate challenge that we've got, and that is a dramatically increasing price of energy in our country at the moment.
Just one question, which is a curiosity to people in the rest of the country. The Saudi Arabian government has been pursuing a policy of sports washing, as it's known, using sport and sometimes cultural events to clean the image of the country after its leader, Mohammed bin Salman, ordered the assassination and dismemberment of a journalist for the Washington Post. Why do you want the Saudi Arabians' golf tournament to take place in South Australia?
We want one of the world's biggest and best golf tournaments here in our country. We haven't seen the golfers of this calibre in our nation for a generation. The Commonwealth of Australia has a long-term strategic relationship with Saudi Arabia.
It's not the same thing as a sporting contest? Completely different to a sporting contest, you'd accept?
I accept that they're a substantial trading partner with both South Australia and Australia, and other people at a more senior level of government, at the Commonwealth level, have determined that this is a country that we have very strategic trading and defence relationships with. So I'm not too sure how that's connected to a golf tournament. Well,
because the golf tournament is funded by Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund, would you be happy to sit and watch the golf with Mohammed bin Salman?
Well, the Saudi Public Investment Fund invests in a lot of things, including Boeing aircraft, Facebook, Uber, as well as golf tournaments. And I think as a country, we're well established as being high users of each of those services and mediums and platforms. In South Australia, we've got a dedicated effort to boosting our tourism sector, and that's one that we're very proud of.
Premier, thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening.
My pleasure, Sarah. Thank you.